Welcome to this video series on Catholic approach to palliative care. Palliative care is a relatively new branch of medicine especially designed for people living with serious or advanced illness. Multiple research studies show that people with serious illness feel better, get the kind of medical care that matches their values and priorities, and sometimes even live longer when they receive palliative care. Each of these videos will introduce a topic that is important to people of faith who are living with serious illness. In this 6-part video series, we will discuss palliative care, advanced care planning, explore the Christian roots of palliative care, and the special importance of the sacraments of baptism and the Eucharist to people living with advanced illness. Consider the important work of being a caregiver for someone who has advanced illness. Each video is about 20 minutes and has a discussion guide to go with it. We encourage you to watch the videos in a group parish setting and take the time after the video to discuss what you've watched. Each discussion guide also has links to resources to help you learn more about the uniquely Catholic approach to palliative care. These videos have been viewed by multiple health ministry teams, parish nurses across the U.S., and endorsed by Catholic leaders like myself. We hope that they will be a blessing for you as you live with or care for people who are living with serious illness. If you have additional questions or would like more resources, please feel free to visit the Supportive Care Coalition's website. Thank you, and may the peace of Christ be with you always.
It started with abdominal pain 2 years ago. I just thought it was one of my regular stomach aches, but it kept coming back and getting worse each time. I tried to ignore it, but then the pain began keeping me up at night. After that, I decided to go to the doctor. The doctor did some tests and told me I had cancer in my ovaries and it had spread to other parts of my body. I had surgery and chemotherapy. I felt awful during all of that, but it worked. My cancer was gone. About 1.5 years later, I started having pain again, really bad pain, worse than before. My doctor said the cancer had come back and that I had needed to have more treatments. The first treatments took down the cancer a bit, but then it came right back. My doctor tried a different medicine, and the same thing happened. The cancer seemed to go away, but then came right back. At the end of the treatment, my doctor said that the next step is to do experimental treatments, and he can't guarantee that they will work. At that point, I struggled with what to do. I was praying to God and our Mother to heal me. I want to be faithful and do everything to stay alive, but I also know that it is okay to go home when God calls. That is when I called Father Sanchez. After I talked with Father Sanchez, he let me know that it was okay to ask for more help from our parish and from my doctor. I am now part of a weekly prayer group for people like me who are living with serious illness. I also asked my doctor to refer me to the palliative care team at the oncology clinic where I go for my appointments. The palliative care team has helped me feel better, less pain, better sleep, more energy. And they have helped me and my family talk about what is most important to us right now. For me, for my faith, for my family. They've even helped us talk about what kind of medical care I would want if I got worse. At the beginning, it was hard to talk about things like that. But now that we've talked about it together, I feel so much more peace knowing that whatever happens, my family will be okay, and they won't be burdened with guessing what to tell the doctors if there comes a time when they need to do that for me. I am so glad that I reached out to Father Sanchez for help.
Welcome. My name is MC Sullivan, and I'm the Chief Healthcare Ethicist for the Archdiocese of Boston. It's my pleasure to be with all of you today to talk about palliative care in light of our Catholic faith and beliefs. Palliative care is an expression of the healing ministry of Christ. It's a specific way of taking care of people who have a serious illness to help them live as well as possible for as long as possible. But before we begin talking about palliative care, I'd like to look at two ways of thinking about faith and serious illness. First, the role of the faith community is to support its members. It is in our faith communities that we walk with each other through life's challenges, including times of illness. If we have a serious illness, we can count on our faith community to pray for us, to give us spiritual support, and maybe even to help with some of the practical things we need, like a ride to the doctor's appointments, or preparation of meals, or someone to look after our children, even our pets, if we are in the hospital. There's a second role, or a second way to think about facing serious illness, and that's the role of our beliefs and our understanding of what the church teaches as we face serious illness and make decisions about our medical care. For example, when we have a serious illness, we often have to decide what kind of medical treatment we want and what kind of medical treatment we don't want. As we make those decisions, we want to stay true to our beliefs about life, about illness, about the end of life, and about what lies beyond. To do that, we may need to learn more about both the medical aspects of our situation and church teachings, so that we can make decisions that match our beliefs and match our faith. And both of these, the support of our faith community and our own faith and beliefs, are very important to think about as we think about palliative care. So let's think about these concepts in the context of a real-life story. We've just heard the story of Mrs. P, a young woman very similar to patients I cared for over these years. Mrs. P is a 30-year-old woman with stage 4 ovarian cancer. She was first diagnosed 2 years ago when she experienced abdominal pain that she dismissed as just one of those stomach aches at first, but which regularly occurred over and over several months. And it was only when the pain began to interfere with her sleep that she sought medical advice. As you heard her describe, she was eventually diagnosed with cancer and treated with surgery and chemotherapy. At the end of the treatment, it looked like her cancer was gone. But 18 months later, her symptoms reappeared and treatment began again and continued until she had completed 4 cycles of treatment and was running out of options. At that point, Mrs. P called her parish priest to seek counsel, wondering what she should do about her medical care. She wanted to think about decisions in advance of having to make them, and she wanted to be prepared for what she felt would be the inevitable recurrence of her illness. So given Mrs. P's current situation, what is the role of her faith community? What is the role of her faith? When she meets with her priest, she can ask for prayer and ask to receive the sacrament of the sick. Maybe there's a special service for prayer and healing for the sick that she can attend in the near future. Many parishes also have other staff, their deacons and chaplains and parish nurses, all of whom can be very supportive when you have a serious illness and need support in making medical decisions. Many parishes also have educators or educational programs that can provide guidance or tools or resources or book recommendations on how to live with serious illness and make medical decisions when needed. In addition to prayer, support, and education, faith community leaders may also be able to connect you with support groups and additional resources to help you learn more about palliative care, advanced care planning, proxy decision makers. And most importantly, your local priest or your pastor may be familiar with the ethical and religious directives for Catholic healthcare services, a document also known as the ERDs. This is an important church document that outlines the church's teaching on many health-related issues, including issues that may arise when someone has a serious illness or is facing the end of their life. So what are the ERDs? They were written by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops as guidance for Catholic healthcare services across the United States. It's a thoughtful and carefully written document that has 6 different parts. I won't describe the whole document in any detail here, but for the sake of this topic, I want to talk about parts 3 and 5 of the document. Part 3 talks about the professional and patient relationship and addresses the sanctity of that relationship, where dignity, where confidentiality, where compassion, where accompaniment for people who are at their most vulnerable places in their lives must be observed and maintained or supplied if missing. And there are responsibilities on both sides for the patient and for the medical professional. There's a tremendous importance that decision-making be collaborative. There's a need to be informed, make sure that the patient is informed, but also that the professionals have done all they can to learn about what is going on with the patient and what might be available options. But they need as well to be informed not just about the medical situation and the medical facts and what they have to say, but also what church teachings have to say in these situations. Part 5 looks at issues that arise in the care of seriously ill and dying. This section gets into informed decision making and goes on to talk specifically about treatment options, discontinuing treatment when that is possible and relevant, when it is not, and what are the conditions that ought to be met before treatments are stopped. So I encourage you to find out more about the ethical and religious directives. Talk about that document with your parish priest or with your Catholic healthcare system doctor, nurse, or chaplain. So we've talked about the role of our faith community, the role of our faith and beliefs, and this important document called the ERDs, the Ethical and Religious Directives, and that all of these things are helpful when someone needs palliative care. But what is palliative care, and who should get it? To address that, I want to share some definitions of palliative care to help us understand what it is and what it is not. The first definition is from an organization called the Center to Advance Palliative Care. They define palliative care, also known as palliative medicine, as specialized medical care for people living with serious illness. It focuses on providing relief from symptoms and the stress of serious illness, whatever the diagnosis. The goal is to improve quality of life for both the patient and the family. Now, what's notable about that definition is that you may notice it doesn't mention death or dying, and it doesn't mention end of life. And in fact, it does mention people living with serious illness. So the point of palliative care is to make sure that people who are suffering from serious illness and their families understand that there are many things we can do in the presence of curative care, or even if curative care is no longer possible. Let's look at the next definition, and that comes to us from Mayo Clinic, a well-established and well-respected organization that most of us know, even if we've never had personal dealings with it. At Mayo Clinic, they describe palliative care as care that offers pain and symptom management and emotional and spiritual support when you face a chronic, debilitating, or life-threatening illness. What's impressive about that definition is that it's broad enough to include many people who might benefit from palliative care. We all know people with chronic or debilitating illness, and sometimes they're life-threatening illnesses. But when we think about that, we might not have otherwise included them in the group of patients that we would think are candidates for palliative care. And then just to remind us that we're joining a conversation that's not only happening in the US, but across the globe, I include a definition from the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization says palliative care is an approach that improves the quality of life of patients and their families facing the problems associated with life-threatening illness through the prevention and relief of suffering by means of early identification and impeccable assessment of pain and other problems, physical, psychosocial, and spiritual. What stands out about this definition is that we're talking about life and improving the quality of it for people who are dealing with serious illness. It also highlights that palliative care is patient-focused and family-oriented. So what do all these definitions mean? It means palliative care implements a holistic, interdisciplinary care plan that identifies, assesses, and addresses the comprehensive needs of the patient, including pain and other symptom management, psychosocial issues, emotional support, and spiritual care. Palliative care is provided by a team of professionals that include doctors, nurses, social workers, and chaplains. Palliative care can begin at the moment of diagnosis of a life-limiting illness. It is not restricted to end-of-life care, even though it is the model of care used in hospice to care for the dying. Palliative care can be delivered simultaneously with medical treatments or delivered by itself when treatment is no longer an option. Palliative care planning is initiated with the conversations between patients and providers, patient and family, patient and support network that results in the creation of advanced care planning documents, particularly with the designation of a healthcare proxy for decision-making when the patient no longer has the capacity to do so. And this is all supported and further elaborated on in the ethical and religious directives. People sometimes wonder if palliative care is consistent with Catholic teaching. To that I would say that palliative care is the living out of Catholic teaching for people who need our care, our support, and our companionship. We have to remember that when we talk about palliative care, although palliation often refers to comfort, we're not just talking about pain. We're talking about other symptom management too. So let's remember the whole cornucopia of symptoms that include pain, to be sure, but also things like stomach symptoms, diabetic neuropathy or numbness, fibromyalgia or muscle aches. We have all kinds of pain and discomfort-related symptoms that aren't necessarily going to be handled by pain medication, but may also require other kinds of medication and other kinds of intervention, like massage, like acupuncture or acupressure. We try to think holistically and as comprehensively as possible. Having said that, we know firsthand that many patients go into a situation of a serious illness diagnosis never having heard about palliative care, and their doctor or nurse may not know what it is. Or if they do know what it is, they may say things like, "Oh, you don't need that because you're going to be fine." Well, maybe you are going to be fine, but if you have to deal with serious illness, you still need palliative care and would benefit from it. So palliative care includes advanced care planning and the conversation about what if, when something happens, what do you think about, what are your concerns or fears, what are your questions? All of that conversation is necessary to get that palliative care ball rolling. Palliative care addresses your pain and other symptoms that often come with serious illness. Palliative care includes support for your spiritual needs. Palliative care includes support for your practical and relationship needs, everything from finance to how things are going at home in the face of your serious illness. So it includes support for your family. Palliative care includes emotional support for the stress and grief that can go along with serious illness. So who's a candidate for palliative care? Anyone with a serious illness who needs support with advanced care planning, with pain or other symptom management, for spiritual care, psychosocial care, or emotional support. That might be a 7-year-old with type 1 juvenile diabetes. It might be a 53-year-old with early onset Alzheimer's, or a 16-year-old with an autoimmune disease like lupus, or a 49-year-old with pancreatic cancer, a 23-year-old with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a 60-year-old with multiple sclerosis, a 36-year-old with pernicious anemia. Think long and think broadly about people who have serious or chronic illness. They're all candidates for palliative care. It's not about age, and it's not about being advanced in your illness. You could be just starting out what we hope will be years or decades of your life that will be all that much better because all of your needs are attended to and you have the support you and your family need. So when someone is diagnosed, how is palliative care started at the time of diagnosis? I'll say it again. A person of any age is a candidate for palliative care. And while we would like to think that the doctor or nurse will suggest palliative care, I would suggest it if the doctor or nurse doesn't bring it up. Feel free to ask about palliative care. So why do we promote palliative care? Because palliative care is a good. It does wonderful things. It lifts out and it considers and it addresses the need for every aspect of what makes us human as we experience serious illness. And palliative care models our Christian anthropology, how we understand what it means to be human. That is, that we are physical, spiritual or transcendent, emotional, and social beings. And this understanding of who we are as human beings is dependent on our relationships with each other, with our families, with our faith community, with our God. And palliative care is centered on the person with serious illness, but also centered on the family who cares for them, centered on living well while living with a serious illness. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have this time to speak with you about palliative care, the importance of it, and how to access it.